Welcome to another episode of It Had to Be Said podcast, where we say out loud what you think in private. No topic is off limits. And then today we're going to be talking about things that we can, takeaways from the Carmelo Anthony case. All right, at least my personal takeaways. And one of the first takeaways I have in regards to this case is that we need to do a better job teaching our kids it's okay to walk away from certain situations, right? And why I say that is because when Carmelo first went underneath the tent and, it was another team's tent. It was raining and he went there, and I believe there was 4 or 5 other students from the other team that was there. And they said, hey, this is our team tent. You need to go to your own team tent. And he made the remark along the line of, well, make me. I think that everyone underneath that tent from the other team should have realized, like, you know what? It's about 4 or 5 of us, and he's by himself. And we're telling him politely to go to his team tent. And he's like, make me, which is basically saying, look, I'm ready to fight. I think everybody in that tent should have the situational awareness to say, you know what, just leave this kid alone because he has no sense right now, and he's willing to escalate a situation that doesn't need to be escalated, or he has no situational awareness to understand that it's 4 or 5 of us here, and if we decided to, we can beat his behind. So either he's really brave or really stupid, right? So I think we need to teach our kids, sometimes situational awareness is important, and picking and choosing your battles are extremely important. By no means am I blaming the victim, but I am saying that, just alone from that comment that he made and from his demeanor, they should have been able to sit there and say, you know what, let me just get a teacher because this kid right here is like something ain't right about him, right? The second thing I think we need to really focus on teaching our kids as well is that, it's okay to walk away from situations because you don't want to deal with somebody who has nothing to lose. Like, there are some people, they can have a happy family, they can have good grades, they can have so much things going for them. But if they're emotionally not there, or they're just mentally not there, they can take a small situation like you just asking them to leave your tent and turning it into a situation where they pull out a knife and stab you. Because some people, they act first and then think later. They have no, they really just don't have anything. It's not that they don't have anything to lose, but they just don't think about the consequences of their actions, right? And I think we need to do a better job of explaining to our kids there are some really stupid and dumb, ignorant people out there that will do some stupid, dumb, ignorant things, right? And things that are just not called for. I like to look at it from the point of view of when something happens or I come across somebody who I see is willing to escalate a simple disagreement or misunderstanding, the first thing I think about is, okay, am I willing to fight this person? And am I willing to fight this person to the death? It may sound a little bit extreme, right? But that's really the way you have to look at it. And I think we need to teach our kids that, because some people, they would take a small, simple situation and escalate it like that. And I'm pretty sure, like the victim here and all of the students underneath that tent, nobody expected a simple touch and a simple push to escalate into somebody just pulling out a knife and stabbing them. It didn't even escalate to a slap or punch or nothing. No fight. It was just, okay, touch me, I touch you. Push me, I push you. You go into your book bag, pull out a knife and stab me. Proportional response. That's what we're thinking, right? But that's what happens when you live in a very, logical place, or you're a very logical person, or you think very logically, and you have no sense of danger. You have no sense, you have no sense of danger. And I think, we don't teach our kids enough, like how dangerous the world is out there, and how there are some people that are just unhinged and just completely, messed up in the head, right? Because if you think about this, Carmelo went to that event. It was a school event. So they were going to be able to easily, if he got into a fight or an altercation, they were easily going to be able to identify who he was. When he went underneath that tent and they asked him to move, and then he said, well, make me, and then the situation was going to escalate into a fight, he could have thought about it and said, you know what, I'm at a track meet, I got good grades, I could possibly, get kicked off the track meet or lose scholarships or get suspended if I get into a fight here, and I'm at their tent, their team tent, so it's not going to look good for me. No common sense enough, no common sense, no thought process to say that, right? And then when the situation escalated and he decided to pull out his knife and stab this boy, it was not like, oh, I'm going to stab him and I'm going to get away with it. No, he stabbed the kid, and it's like, everybody's going to be able to tell who you are. You're not going to get away with it. So when he took off running, it was like, why even run? They're going to be able to easily identify who you are. It's a track meets, it's student, it's the process of elimination. You have to get back home with your school, and when they notice you're missing, they're going to be able to tell exactly who you are. So it was like, act first, think later. And I think we need to do a really good job. I think we need to do a better job of explaining that to our kids, that there are some people who are just not emotionally there, not mentally there. And there are some really stupid, dumb people out there who would take a small, tiny situation and escalate it into murder. So unless you are willing to fight somebody to the death, always put that in your head, kid. I think that's something that we need to teach our kids, because this is something that I tell myself. Unless I'm willing to fight somebody to the death, is it even worth me opening my mouth and rebuttaling? I can just walk away from a situation. And I've done that before, where a situation's happened, and and I think I mentioned this on my previous podcast. I was at a gas station. I turned around and I bumped into someone, and the person was like, oh my, and they started talking a bunch of crap, and I just looked at them and I said, dude, I'm sorry, man. I'm not about that life. I got a business. I got things going on in my life. I'm sorry, not about that life. I apologize. And I walked away, and the person just kind of looked at me like, dude, why don't you want to throw away your life? Like, you're black, I'm black. We should be fighting and having what they call a nigger moment. And I'm not gonna embrace that. I'm not gonna go into that, with anybody.
Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
So I just walk away, and that's what I tell myself, because I have my concealed weapons permit on me, and I always have to remind myself, if I get into a physical altercation with someone, there's only one of two ways that this can happen. This can end. One, I can get into a fight with you. You can take my weapon from me at some point and use it against me. Or number two, we can get into a fight, and if I start to lose or something happens, I may end up having to pull out my weapon to defend myself, right? So it's just not worth it. Look at the situation and just walk away, right? Now, the other thing that I take away from that, especially as a parent, is, we need to be able to tell if we raise a piece of crap kid, right? Like, let's be honest about it. We all were teenagers and kids at some point, and we all lie to our parents. And the worser the crime that we commit or the offense that we commit, the more the bigger the lie, right? If we went to school and we were disrespectful and we did something, we would say, oh, the teacher doesn't like us, or this person did this and that person did that. We try to find every single excuse to pass the blame on to somebody else rather than accept, responsibility for our own actions. And in most cases, our parents know when we're lying. It's some parents, they choose to believe you, and then some parents sit there and say, no, you're my kid, I know who you are, and I'm going to hold you responsible for that, right? And I think with the Carmelo Anthony situation, I think his parents were not very involved parents, and I think a lot of parents make the mistake of thinking like, oh, if I love my kid and I support my kid regardless, that just shows how much I love them. No, it doesn't, because this guy could, we've seen cases where people have committed murder and got out of jail within 5 to 6 years, right? And, they take plea deals and whatever the case may be. And I think as a parent, if I was Carmelo Anthony's parents, and yes, I'm playing Monday night quarterback, but I'm just saying, look, let's look at the situation. If you're the parents and they get contacted and they said, hey, your child just stabbed somebody at a school event, and then you sit down and you say, okay, let's get the facts here. Okay, so You went to a track meet event. You went underneath another team's tent, and they told you to leave. You said no because it was raining, and the kid pushed you. You went into your book. Where was the knife? Was the knife on you? No, it was in my book bag. So then they push you. How many people were underneath the tent? It was 5 or 6 of them. How many people pushed you? Just one. So you weren't getting jumped? No. And then you went into your book bag. And when he pushed you, did he punch you after that? Did he jump on top of you? No. All right. So you went into your book bag and you pulled out a knife and you stabbed him. Okay. Why did you have a knife on you at a school event? Because I was being bullied. You never told me about you being bullied. Let's be honest. Okay, this is us having a private conversation as parents, the child. Okay, you never told me about you being bullied. Okay, son, look, here it is. You're giving me some bullshit right now, okay? And this kid died. So you are going to serve time in jail. We're going to try to get you a plea deal so you serve the least amount of time in jail, but you're going to have to serve some time in jail, all right? And I think that's where the situation should have been, right? But a lot of people, but his parents, what they did instead was they tried to stand behind him and support him regardless, and they did not want to accept the fact that, yes, your child is a reflection of you and how you raised them, and you effed up, and your child effed up, and it's a time to hold him accountable and sit there and say, well, you're going to go to jail and you're going to have to suffer the consequences of your actions. They tried to back him and support him and create all this, uproar and GoFundMe and all this other stuff. And now their child is serving 35 years in prison. All right. Now people talk about the house that they bought, the car that they bought, the public defendant that they had hired at the first time and that they didn't hire, but they got at the first time, and how the parents are living and this and that. I'm not going to get into all that, but all I'm saying to you is just a takeaway from that as a parent as well is accept the fact that our kids are going to lie to us. Call our kids out when they lie to us. And only way that they're going to learn from their mistakes is by them suffering consequences and them being held accountable. By us just going to back for them and supporting them, regardless of whatever BS they do or whatever lie they tell. You remember, kids are young, and when they're young and they're not adults, what happens is the only form of authority that they really understand or they know is their parents. And if you don't teach them that there are other authorities out there like law enforcement that they have to answer to, what's going to happen is they're going to leave your house, they're going to go into the real world, and they're going to think that they can lie their ways out of everything, and mom and dad is going to be there to bail them out. And that's exactly what happened with this situation. And, he's in prison for right now. Now, there's another aspect to this, which is, a lot of people got upset because they said that there were no black jurors during jury selection. There was no black jurors that were selected. And if you look at the transcripts when they were doing the jury selection, you would see that they brought in black jurors, right? And one of the answers that has gone viral from one of the jurors was when they asked him, can he see himself convicting Carmelo Anthony if he's found guilty? And the black juror and the black possible juror said, I cannot see myself convicting and sending a young black man to jail. It's kind of like either that person was trying to keep it real and just being way too honest, or they were purposely saying things so they will not get selected to be put on that juror. Okay. And you heard some black activists and black attorneys saying black people need to do a better job as far as answering questions in order to sit on a trial and to be a jury member and everything like that. But you have to remember the city or the district that the murder took place in was a predominantly white district or neighborhood. And there were very few black people there, and the income in that area was a nice middle class income. So if you're a black person and you live in that area, you probably went and live in a predominantly white neighborhood to get away from all of the crime and violence that's happening in a majority of the black communities out there, right? And your income is pretty sufficient and pretty good. So if that means you may have a good job and you might have some level of common sense and things like that. So you have to think about it from a logical point of view. If you on a jury, and this kid is convicted, which you know he committed the murder, and you know he has to serve some time in prison, and he's convicted of the crime and he has to serve time, you know that the black community is going to come after you. If you're on the jury and you decide not to convict and you hold up the crime, you hold up the whole, trial, your neighbors and people around you, they're going to know who you are, and it may affect your job as well. So for any black juror that actually sat on that jury, it would have been like a lose-lose situation. There's no way that they can win, whether he got convicted or whether he didn't get convicted. So any logical, reasonable black juror they would sit there and be like, I'm not trying to sit on it, so I'd rather just not be a part of it. And I think a lot of people don't take that part into consideration as well. And I don't know what I'm not going to say the black community, but I don't know what a lot of Carmelo Anthony supporters expected, like this kid not to be prosecuted, this guy not to spend any time in jail. He committed murder. He was not jumped. He was sitting underneath a tent with 4 to 5 other kids from a different team. He only had an altercation with one person. So he couldn't say, oh, I was about to get jumped. He couldn't say he was attacked by a bunch of other people. If anything, they were trying to break it up. And it was not even under his team's tent, So I don't know what his supporters expected or, what people think was going to happen. But those are the lessons that I've learned. And these are the takeaways that I think that a lot of parents should take away from this case. Teach your kids it's okay to walk away from certain situations. Teach them that, they don't want to deal with somebody who they see as overly aggressive and ready to resort to violence, because, some people don't have anything to lose, and some people would take a simple situation and escalate it into murder. We've seen this happen all the time when people get into road rage and it turns out into a shooting, or, somebody's arguing with somebody, then they jump into their car and they run over the person. And then later on in court, they're sitting there and they're crying and they're thinking like, what the hell did I do? Because some people, they act first and then they think later. So if they realize that they're dealing with somebody who's emotionally unstable, just walk away from the situation. It's okay. Don't care about what people have to say. Don't care about your reputation or anything like that, because at the end of the day, the people who are probably going to talk crap about you, these are people you're probably never going to see again. And these are people who within a day or two, or maybe even a week, they're going to move on to some other juicy gossip and nobody's even going to remember it. So it's okay to just be the bigger person and walk away, and also to have situational awareness and just understand, when you're dealing with somebody who's unhinged and unstable. Once again, my name is Ali Telford. This is my podcast. It Had to Be Said podcast. We post new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. If there's a particular topic or subject that you would like for me to touch on, you can DM me on Instagram at It Had to Be Said podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.